during this process. So thank you very much. Again, all the audio is through your computer, so please be sure that your volume is up and on. Again, hopefully folks did get an opportunity to look at the background information for this webinar about MACO activities, as well as if you had the time in looking at the first version of this stakeholder webinar. We're trying something new today. Please be patient. We greatly appreciate your cooperation. The most important thing is that our success really requires your active participation, posting questions, providing comments, providing suggestions, and engaging in discussion. So you'll see throughout this webinar opportunities through the chat box for you to engage in general questions and comments, as well as specific discussions that will be set up for the discussion. I would like you to, at the outset, look at the right of your screen. You'll see the screenshots will vary through this. But we do have up there currently a poll. We have, based on feedback we have gotten from the stakeholders on previous outreach efforts and through a survey that MACO conducted earlier in the year. These are issues that had been identified for further potential collaboration. So we'd like your input on those issues that you think are most important for potential future collaboration. These are in addition to the work group efforts that MACO is currently working on that we'll discuss specifically during this webinar. Again, the forum is intended to be highly interactive, and its success depends on your participation. We will capture all the information. In the limited time we have today, we won't be able to get to everything, but please rest assured that we will capture all the information and make it available prior to after the workshop, and we'll continue to consider these things. Again, one aspect is the webinar will be recorded. All online comments and questions will be captured. We cannot address them today. They will either be considered specifically by the work groups if you have directed your comments to the work groups, or by the MACO steering committee. And subsequent to the workshop, we will be making all the PowerPoints available, as well as a written summary of this and the May 19th forum summarizing the comments that we got. So as we move forward, I'd just like to sort of show you the format generally that we'll be looking at. So again, you'll see this more explicitly in the interactive sessions, but as a bit of a preview, you'll see that on the interactive sessions, there will be general information, in this case, for the work group activities of what the current work group priorities are on the right-hand column. And then in the middle, there are opportunities for you to discuss those issues moving forward. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what we're going to be doing today. And again, if you have any technical questions, please submit them through the chat box. And again, particularly, we encourage you to give us your thoughts and comments and questions in the specific sessions as we move through the workshop. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to for some remarks and some welcoming remarks on behalf of Keisha Santiago Martinez, the New York State Deputy Secretary of State, who is the chair of the Mid-Atlantic Regional Council on Ocean Management. So thank you very much.
Everyone. On behalf of the Mid-Atlantic Regional Council on the Ocean, MARCO, I am honored to welcome you to the Mid-Atlantic Ocean Forum Supplemental Webinar. MARCO is a regional ocean partnership for the Mid-Atlantic with representatives from New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. And I would like to acknowledge all of the management board members, especially the executive team, Kevin Hassel, Laura McKay, Kimberly Cole, and Catherine McCall, as well as Mike Snyder and the MARCO staff members Judy Tucker and Avalon Bristow. I would also like to acknowledge the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, whose ongoing support has been instrumental and allows MARCO to hold forums and webinars like this, which are vital to regional collaboration. While we were so looking forward to hosting the Ocean Forum in New York and reconnecting with you in person, I am grateful for and impressed by the hard work done by the forum planning team to transition to a virtual format. Thank you so very much for your hard work. It has been just over a year since MARCO announced the establishment of the Mid-Atlantic Committee on the Ocean, a subcommittee to foster collaboration among states, federal agencies, the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council, federally recognized tribes, and stakeholders, and to deepen engagement with these partners to achieve our shared goals. In this short time, MACO has refocused this collaborative work and advanced MARCO's priorities by creating and continuing work groups focused on critical ocean topics, including reducing marine debris, facilitating interagency coordination around offshore wind energy, improving understanding about issues like ocean acidification, and sharing information about maritime, commerce, and navigation. New York's participation in this effort is directly in line with Governor Andrew Cuomo's policy goals. The state is committed to preparing communities and economies for sea level rise and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Legislation like the Community Risk and Resiliency Act and Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, which aims to achieve 70% renewable energy by 2030 and cutting greenhouse gas emissions by 85% by 2050, demonstrates New York's commitment to address climate-related issues. Thankfully, New York State's aggressive offshore wind goals and attention to these issues like ocean acidification is not only happening in our state. As we all know, these issues and concerns transcend state borders. Since 2009, the Mid-Atlantic states have worked together to identify innovative strategies to ensure that future generations can enjoy healthy and productive ocean ecosystems. And MACO is helping the Mid-Atlantic region work collaboratively across states, governmental agencies, tribes, and other entities toward unified goals for improving ocean health and contributing to the economic vitality of the region, providing a larger and more effective impact. One of our goals has been to improve stakeholder communication and to consider and incorporate stakeholder input. This forum is one way in which we are advancing that goal. We have heard your calls to do even more. We are here and we are listening. Over the next hour and a half, we will identify and discuss existing forthcoming challenges to the Mid-Atlantic's ocean ecosystem and economy. During this session, you will have an opportunity to provide suggestions directly to work group leads for consideration. MACO will continue this commitment to engage stakeholders through many avenues, including but not limited to future discussions, webinars, and surveys. We will identify opportunities to collaborate consistent with each entity's mission and priorities. There is also additional information on the MARCO website about ways to connect with us, to learn more about MACO, the MARCO data portal, and a host of other resources. Again, thank you for being here today, for joining us in our efforts to protect and manage our oceans. Your continued dedication and commitment make it an honor to serve as MARCO's chair. And now I'll hand it over to Kevin Haslow, New Jersey's Department of Environmental Protection's Office of Policy and Coastal Management, a member of the MARCO Executive Board and MACO Chair. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Keisha, for that excellent overview of who we are, our efforts to date, and why we're all here today. I'd also like to thank Tony for continuing to help facilitate this coordination. He really makes a lot of this possible sometimes. So I'll be really brief, just so we can get into the heart of why we're all here today. Again, I'd like to thank and welcome you to the supplemental webinar for our 2020 Mid-Atlantic Ocean Forum. Initially, we had 280 registrants, but due to some unforeseen technical issues, we ended up limiting how many people could actually join. So we wanted to really have another chance for engaging with all of you on these topics, and I hope we find you well during these challenging times. I'd first like to thank those who have provided us with input and participated in our workgroup efforts, our portal webinars, and other outreach over the past year. Your feedback and participation has been invaluable in ground truthing our collaboration, and it greatly informed the development of our 2020 Ocean Forum. And I'd also like to thank those of you who might this be their first time interacting with us for joining today. And we greatly value having so many people interested in ocean resource issues, and it gives us an opportunity to engage with you more and learn about your ideas and concerns. So the May 19th Ocean Forum covered a lot of ocean in a short amount of time. The plenary presentations address major future changes that will impact ocean management, including Federal Ocean Policy Committee perspectives on the future of ocean management, emerging offshore wind energy technologies, and climate change impacts in the Mid-Atlantic. Our speakers provided a great deal of important information, so if you haven't yet done so, I highly recommend checking out the recording. The other part of the Ocean Forum was designed as interactive sessions, with the first session focused on ideas that might highlight ways to enhance current work group efforts, and the latter sessions to identify opportunities and needs for future collaboration. So we heard a lot of great feedback, both on our current efforts and where we're going in the future, and that initial feedback is already being distributed to our work groups and discussed, and so we're looking forward to continuing that conversation. So that brings us today. This is an opportunity to provide those of you who couldn't join us on the 19th to provide us with that input and on our current and future potential collaborations. And also those who did join us last time and came back today, welcome back. And so we look forward to continuing the conversation with you and all of our other peers here. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Tony to start up the rest of the session.
Great. And before we move to the next slide, I will encourage people to please, if you have not already, choose your top 3 topics. We really would like to get your input and this quick take as to what the top issues. We're not necessarily going to limit our future consideration to those top 3, but we'd like to get your sense of the issues that are most important based on the feedback we've gotten so far. So before I move, we're going to close this poll in a minute. You'll get the results a little bit later in the webinar. But again, I'll give you another a few seconds to please, if you haven't already, choose your top 3 issues for future collaboration. Okay. Looks like we're getting a little robust activity, which is great to see. And as we're doing that, I will just move on to sort of outline where we're going to be going on the agenda here in the next interactive sessions. The first session will be, as we discussed, looking at building on current work group efforts. And you'll see on the right a list of what their current work group priorities are. The work group leads will summarize those, and we'll introduce them in a moment. I do want to emphasize, please, that really the question is, what else can we be doing to advance those priorities? And please remember that work group efforts are ongoing, and the Marco website has available for you all past activities, as well as the work group work plans for those work groups. So that information is available if you'd like more information on the work groups. Please urge throughout this webinar, if to the extent you can, to be as specific as you can. Not only what is the issue, but what do you think MACO should be doing about it, and how can we advance future collaboration. So please try to make your comments as specific as possible as to what we can do moving forward. And then after we go through the work group sessions, we will have a brainstorming session on other collaborative opportunities and needs that might not currently be on the current work group's agenda. So that's the framework for today. And we fortunately have some of our work group leads who have really been dedicated in trying to coordinate some of these collaborative efforts. So if you go to the next slide, I'll introduce them all now, and then you'll be hearing from them in order as we discuss the different sessions. Peter Klaus will be talking a little bit from the Ocean and Great Lakes program from New York's Department of State. We'll be talking about the Offshore Renewable Energy Work Group. Jerry Barnes, who is a Marine Planner and AIDS Navigation Program Manager in the U.S. Coast Guard 5th District, will be our lead on the Maritime Commerce and Navigation Safety Group. And after that, we will be going to Kirsten Wakefield. She's the Engagement Coordinator for Special Projects at the MidAtlantic Regional Association Coastal Ocean Observing Systems. And she'll be talking about the Ocean Acidification Work Group efforts. And then following her will be Kevin Hassel. Again, we already heard from Kevin. He is the chair, as you heard, of MACO, but in addition, he is leading the Nonconsumptive Recreation Work Group. And finally, we'll hear from Laura McKay, who's the program manager from the Virginia Coastal Zone Management Program. And I think in her picture, I think that might be her grandchild. So it's great to see that. So thank you very much, you all, for joining us today. And without any further ado, we'll move right into those discussion sessions. So the way this will give you a couple of times, if you look at the way this is set up, the core question, as I mentioned, is what else can we be doing to advance these or other priorities on the work group area? So we're really looking for your ideas on how we can take further actions or maybe provide more attention to some of the priorities that we're currently working on in those work groups. You'll see down below there is a chat group for each. You can begin filling them in at any time, and we encourage you to put in your comments and questions as the workshop leads, the work group leads are reviewing their current priorities. And then we will take some time on each to actually have engaged in a little discussion and back and forth to the extent time allows this morning. So with that, if you see the format, I'll turn it over. First, I'll ask Peter Klaus to review the offshore renewable energy priorities, and then I'll ask Jerry to review the maritime commerce priorities. And as they're speaking, as I said, please begin the conversation and put any comments you'd like to into the chat box. So thank you very much. So Peter, over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Tony, and thank all of you for participating today. I'm here to talk about a little bit about the Offshore Wind Regional Collaboration, or OREC, which includes members of the Marco States, BOEM, NOAA, and the MidAtlantic Fishery Management Council. OREC will provide a forum for interested MACO members to identify issues that would benefit from closer collaboration that are not already being addressed by other offshore wind working groups in the region. It will also discuss how the MidAtlantic data portal can best be used as a resource to meet data needs. We'll be able to share and receive information about meetings and decision points relative to offshore wind in the Mid-Atlantic. In the longer term, the collaboration will look to opportunities to provide information exchange on key issues relevant to the MACO members and all of you. We are certainly sensitive to wanting to add to and not duplicate conversations that are already happening at a regional level. In the near term, the OREC members have committed to convene bi-monthly calls to facilitate interagency information exchange, develop and host periodic webinars on relevant topics as identified by members of OREC, develop a shared calendar of events to be posted on the Marco website, and to facilitate information exchange with other regional offshore wind groups. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Tony.
Great, thank you. I think I appreciate that, Peter. And I think we're actually going to go through both the priorities now to give folks an opportunity to enter in some comments to your section as well as the next one. So I'll actually ask Jerry to please review the maritime commerce and navigation safety activities and current priorities.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Tony, and thank you, Peter. There's a lot of carryover between the OREC work group and the Maritime Commerce and Navigational Safety work group. And really the goal of the Maritime Commerce and Navigational Safety is really to monitor marine commerce trends and traffic patterns, and then to identify and address emerging commerce and navigational needs. And over the past year, we've really been doing that in four key areas. First is by the conducting of port access route studies. And presently we have port access route studies every mid-Atlantic state from North Carolina through New Jersey. In addition, we're looking at several anchorage ground proposals to look at deconflicting water space issues. Third, we are looking at implementing shipping safety fairways along the Atlantic coast. And fourth, by conducting webinars in collaboration with Marco and the data portal team. And so over the next year, we're going to be keeping those efforts going. And I just want to give you a highlight. It's been a really busy year, and some of the recent activities of the work group and through the Coast Guard are the following. On June 6th in 2019, we hosted a Mid-Atlantic Maritime Commerce and Navigation Safety Forum webinar. It included guest speakers from the Maritime Administration, National Weather Service, Marco, Coast Guard 5th District, Coast Guard Headquarters, and Harbor Safety Committee members from the ports of New York and North Carolina. On November 27th, 2019, we published a notice of study on the port access route study for Chesapeake Bay. November 29th, we published the notice of inquiry on potential anchorage grounds offshore Delaware Bay. On January 21st, we hosted a How Tuesday webinar on how to use the Marco data portal to analyze Coast Guard proposed anchorage grounds in the various port access route studies. On March 18th, we published a notice of study for the port access route study for the seacoast of North Carolina and the North Carolina ports of Wilmington and Morehead City. On May 5th, we published the notice of study in the Federal Register for the PARS for the seacoast of New Jersey and Delaware Bay. On May 8th, we published a notice for inquiry on acreage grounds for the Cape Fear River approaches in North Carolina. May 28th, we published a final rule establishing anchorage grounds in the lower Chesapeake Bay offshore Cape Charles, Virginia. June 18th, we hosted another How Tuesday webinar focusing on the port access route study for New Jersey. And just 4 days ago, on June 19th, the Coast Guard published the advance notice proposed rulemaking is proposing to establish shipping safety fairways along the Atlantic coast. So over the next year, we again look to, one, use the work group and use the data portal to increase and facilitate public participation. And absent that, or barring any questions, that concludes my brief.
Thank you very much, Jerry. As you can tell, there's an awful lot of activity, and some of you may be aware of things that we're not even aware of, but there's a lot of activity in the Mid-Atlantic Ocean right now, and again, the work groups are trying to get their focus on it, and also particularly how do they not duplicate other efforts, but create some collaboration around some value-added comments. So again, please encourage people in the next few minutes to enter in any comments or questions or suggestions on what else we can be doing to advance these or other priorities on the topic, and we'll capture all of that information, and we'll give you a couple of more minutes, so please do that. I do see that Jeremy Firestone posted a question regarding what the Maritime Commerce and Navigation work groups are doing regarding offshore wind, and Avalon Bristow, who is staffing that, pointed out that is actually an issue that's very much on our priority, and we're currently working with the committee to think about how we can have a webinar to address those issues in more detail and share information about those activities. That's currently being planned. I should say, as we're waiting for folks to comment, that as a result of the former webinar on the 19th and this one as well, all the work groups are planning meetings in the coming 6 weeks to follow up on the feedback they're getting and to consider what they might do to either enhance current action or make more information available and share information with you in the future. So with that, I do see that there's a question from Helen Henderson about regional updates hosted by Mako Marco with stakeholders, including wind energy project representatives. So we will consider that, about whether we'll have more regular interaction. Again, I think we're all kind of analyzing how we most effectively have ongoing interaction under the current circumstances, and certainly we miss the opportunity to have the in-person meeting. Peter or Avalon, do you see anything else in the offshore renewable energy group you'd like to respond to, or any questions you'd like to ask the group?
Hi, thanks, Tony. I'm seeing a few more comments coming in, and I'll also kind of put Kevin Hassel on the spot. He's the other lead of the offshore wind group to address anything. So thank you.
Yeah, I think Avalon's answer was good on the PARs and discussing some of those things. I would ask Jeremy, I know he had just asked about in advance of the comment period deadline. I'm not which one of those is he referring to, but in general, I mean, obviously there's a lot of coordination and discussions that we're having, both as the offshore renewable energy group and as Jerry just went through a lot of the maritime commerce and navigation issues. Those conversations are happening in terms of sharing that information and understanding what's going on out there. So I think it's, obviously, if there's ways that we can better do that. I know Jerry just went through a lot of webinars they did that was posting information about those, the PAR studies in the various states. I think Jerry might be answering the deadline on that one too. So that closes on August 18th. So we're in the process of trying to set those up. So we'll see when we can pull that off and have information in there. Generally, we were thinking about just providing a lot of that information on the different PARs topics and the fairways, et cetera. So I think we'll see if we can scope that as to be responsive to any of those deadlines that are there.
Great, thank you.
And I did also want to address Helen asked about having regional updates posted by Mako Marco with stakeholders, including wind energy project representatives. I will say that webinars are part of the offshore wind regional collaboration work plan. So this will be things that we try to plan on a yearly basis, multiple webinars. So that's a great idea, and we'll certainly take it back to the work group to consider. So thank you very much, Helen.
Yeah, and I think recognizing that work group is this internal collaboration, a lot to share information internally. It has a lot of things that we're planning to try and do externally with folks to make sure that they're getting the information they would need and be as useful as we can. We also just recognize that there are a lot of other groups that are starting up as well around offshore wind issues. So we want to make sure that we're doing that in a manner that we're, considering what they're doing as well and sharing the same kind of information without being duplicative of any efforts that are out there. So.
Great. So I don't see anybody else typing, but again, I do remind you that you can always submit comments directly to Mako. So I do see Cheryl typing there, so we'll conclude on that. But again, you can at any time submit comments to Mako through their website. So please, you're invited to do that and add to that, and we'll keep you updated on these workgroup activities moving forward. So let's see if Cheryl has anything to add, and then we'll go on to the next workgroup. Thank you. Be sure that the effort is coordinated with New York's Maritime Technical Working Group. Thank you very much. These are very much regional efforts, and we appreciate that suggestion. So with that, we'll move on. Actually, thank you for your input. We'll move on to the next 3 workgroup activities and ask the workgroup leads in turn to give a brief summary of what their priorities currently are. And again, folks are encouraged to follow the same format and submit comments or questions in the chat box as soon as they'd like to do that, and we'll come back and discuss those. So in turn, we'll hear from Kirsten Whitefield, Kevin Hassel, and Laura McKay. So Kirsten?
Thank you, Tony. So I talked briefly today about some of the priorities of the Ocean Acidification Work Group, which is mostly fulfilled through the activities of MACAN, the Mid-Atlantic Coastal Acidification Network, which is a regional collaborative of state, federal, academic, industry, and tribal stakeholders, whose goal is to identify and address research and information needs related to ocean and coastal acidification. So the first of our priorities is to serve as regional information hub for ocean acidification research, news, and events, which we do a lot of through our website at midatcan.org. Our second priority is to fill gaps related to research and monitoring needs that were identified primarily in the white papers published by MACAN in 2019. The first of those was scientific considerations for acidification monitoring in the U.S. Mid-Atlantic region. And the second white paper related to recommended research priorities for research on ecological impacts of ocean and coastal acidification in the U.S. Mid-Atlantic. And both of those resources are available on our website if you want to review them in more depth. Another of our priorities is to develop and conduct outreach to industry members, policymakers, and other regional stakeholders, some of which were identified through our 2019 Industry Stakeholder Survey, and also as requests are brought forward to MACAN to address. Our final priority currently is to establish working groups to help accomplish all of those goals. We're currently standing up 4 working groups. The first is the Science Working Group, which is helping to fill the gaps identified in the 2019 white papers, and also advise MACAN on the most recent ocean and coastal acidification research in the region. The second work group that we're standing up is the Industry Work Group, and the goal is to help create an open dialogue between MACAN and industry stakeholders from recreational and commercial fishing industries, from aquaculture as well as seafood. We'd also like to open this dialogue to bring industry concerns about species-specific impacts to the region so that they can be addressed through the Science Working Group. Our third working group that we're standing up is the Outreach Working Group, and the goal is to provide resources to diverse stakeholders about ocean and coastal acidification and solutions to reduce sources of ocean and coastal acidification. And the fourth working group we're standing up is a policy working group. Some of the goals are to develop some communication tools for policymakers, and also to help follow the development of state ocean acidification commissions or task forces, and see how that information can be coordinated across the regions or used to help other states start their development of some of their reports. So we expect there to be a lot of cross-collaboration between those 4 working groups, and we are currently still looking for members for those working groups. So if you have an interest in participating in any one of those four, please email us at info@midatcan.org. Thanks.
Thank you, Kirsten. So again, people are encouraged to any comments, questions, please, regarding that group, please submit them in the chat box, and we'll ask Kevin to please update us on the non-consumptive recreation group.
Great, thanks, Tony. Yeah, so the non-consumptive recreation group, we've kind of been around for a while. There's been a little bit of a hiatus in some of the active engagement we were doing. It started as a work group that came from feedback from our stakeholders. So I think, this is a great example of where your feedback is really important to us and how we might address things in the future. So make sure we're hearing from you on that. We had a lot of work that was done in terms of hosting workshops throughout the different states, looking at the issues that people were having, these concerns around non-consumptive rec. We did some mapping in the past that probably, we heard a little bit last time about, need to update some of that work, and we had a lot of partners that were doing some other work in this non-consumptive recreation space that we've also hosted things on our data portal with. So after we did some of those workshops, we were also looking at, the interactions of recreation and wildlife, so that there was conflicts with these things. So, we were working on developing a database to find all the relevant information across the states and federal agencies that would help us, raise awareness around those issues and summarize some of those findings. And recommend some kind of best practices a little bit, just so we can inform folks on how that is. And really what we're trying to figure out is scoping how we can make that into a really accessible product. So it's, I think nowadays there's the advent of mobile everything, shall we say. So it's, in what way can we make sure that if people are interacting with wildlife, that they have fast ways of finding information on proper ways of doing it, if there's distances, say, for marine mammals and things like that. And so we're also in the process of scoping other ideas, where we can move this group forward on. We did hear last time about some other issues related to climate change and how that might impact tourism, if we should look at things like that, helping on different ways, looking at kind of citizen science ideas. How can we collect information from all of you that are out in the field, seeing stuff on a daily basis. So we're looking into the idea of kind of developing some mapping or some other app-based strategies that might enable folks to really report back on what they're seeing actively, and we would be able to kind of, it would help us with mapping in our portal and things like that, and also collecting information that I think that we could also share with other work groups. A lot of the feedback that we got with this stuff is kind of also, it's related to the recreation itself, but there's a lot of concerns that happen around even marine debris or other issues. So we just want to make sure that anything we get, we pass through to our other work group members and other MACO folks. With that, I can turn it back to Tony.
Right. No, that's great. Again, please, folks, if they have any ideas, again, we're looking at ideas and input we've also gotten on the previous webinar, and there's been suggestions of opportunities for collaboration with some activities also in New England that might be consistent with past work we've done in this area. So again, we are looking for ideas and opportunities to build on the work that Kevin just outlined. So again, please submit your comments or questions, and we'll come back to that for discussion in a minute or two. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Laura McKay from Virginia.
Thanks, Tony. Good morning, everyone. Our marine debris work group is very robust. We were established right out of the 2016 Ocean Action Plan, Healthy Ocean Ecosystem Goal, and the activities under that. And so we've been working at this for a little while. We were most recently a little bit diverted by the COVID-19 pandemic and started to think about some messaging that we could try to do about litter that is derived from the COVID-19 personal protection equipment. We're finding gloves and masks and so forth on the ground and ending up in storm drains and probably finding their way out to the ocean. So to address that, what we've done is update a website that the Virginia CZM program began a few years ago. It's called preventballoonlitter.org, and we've added some messaging in there about litter-free ways to celebrate and honor our healthcare workers and other essential workers, as well as how to better memorialize those we've lost without releasing balloons and other litter. So please take a look at that website. Our Marine Debris Work Group has been looking at it and contributing to it, and we're very excited. We have a lot of partners now that have joined that, all the way from South Africa, Mexico, South Korea, and I think probably England. So we're definitely getting the word out about particularly balloon releases. And that has been one of the main projects that this group has worked on so far. When we first started, we looked at different marine debris sources and their impacts. And we chose balloon release reduction. It was something we had started working on in Virginia. And we have expanded that to the whole region. Balloons are the number 3 or 4 rated marine debris sources in terms of their harmful impact on ocean wildlife. So that's been an important thing to work on. We're lucky to receive a 3-year grant from NOAA's Marine Debris Program to do social marketing to get people to change their behavior and not release balloons and give them alternatives. As part of that project, we've been monitoring roughly 1-mile sections of beach in each state to see not only what balloons are on the beaches, but other marine debris litter as well, to provide some more background information on what's happening in the Mid-Atlantic. We're hoping to get that information onto the Marco Ocean Data Portal with just points for where we're monitoring, and then dialog boxes that give folks an update on what was found in the most recent and cumulatively in the spring and fall monitoring events that we conduct under that grant. So those are our major activities. We are also working with NOAA's Marine Debris Program. We're going to help them develop a regional Mid-Atlantic marine debris reduction plan. And as a result of our May 19th Ocean Forum, we were lucky to get 2 more members added to our group, one from Rutgers and another NGO, America's Living Oceans. So we thank those 2 folks for joining us. Our membership is quite big. We have 32 members. NOAA and EPA are our federal agency reps. We have all 5 states plus District of Columbia, and an assortment of academic and NGO members. So it's a very robust group, and we are excited to keep going. Unfortunately, we had applied for another grant from the NOAA Marine Debris Program, which we didn't receive, but that's all right. We will try again in another year. We have a lot to do as it stands. But we look forward to hearing from you all as to what you think of what we're doing. And on the last forum, there was a lot of discussion about microplastics and what could we do regarding that. So if you have specific ideas as to what this work group should address, those would be most welcome. It is a very important topic, and we'd like to see what we could do. So I'll leave it at that, Tony, and turn it back to you.
Great. And thank you very much, Laura, and thank all the work group leads for what they're doing and those who contribute to the work groups. So again, there is information available on all the work groups. So those who would like more information or like to get involved, there's been several invitations. Please follow up and let us know that. I would like to say, to give you a bit more time, if you'd like to submit any comments or questions in either any of the chat boxes, I would also like to indicate that a lot of activity, and you've heard reference to this across the work groups, occurs through our ocean data portal, the Marco Mid-Atlantic Ocean Data Portal, and there's ongoing work and outreach around that effort, which we're not discussing specifically today. But a couple things I do want to mention, if you're not aware, but I hope you are, that actually Marco manages an ocean mapping and data team, which is joint federal state collaborative effort to continue to coordinate efforts around enhancing the ocean data portal to inform and support ocean management and planning in the region. So again, there is robust information. We've had regular How-To Stay webinars. We do regular outreach. We have a newsletter. There's considerable ongoing outreach around the portal, and there'll continue to be more moving forward. So please, if you're interested in those efforts, all of the past How-To webinars and instructional videos are all available on the website. And again, we'll continue to provide regular blogs and updates on data enhancements around the portal. That is an active and ongoing effort that works across these work groups, but also on its own to ensure the best data is available to inform regional ocean planning. So I did want to mention those efforts as well, which hopefully you are aware of. And if you want more information, please go to the portal website and you'll find out a lot of information about that. So are there any more comments or questions? I did see that there was back and forth, and thank you very much for some input on some of these other campaigns and offers to connect us with other groups. Do any of the leads want to offer anything else up before we move on to the next section? Any concluding remarks?
I'd only say that, you know, obviously this isn't the last opportunity for people to provide feedback. Please make sure you reach out to us outside of this if you're interested in talking about any of these topics specifically, but also just in general about, you know, the direction that we're going in some of the work groups and our future ideas. So.
Great, thank you.
Hi, and Tony, this is Avalon. I just wanted to make another plug for MACAN's working group that Kirsten Wakefield gave an overview of. Please email us if you're interested in joining. We do have really great representation for most of them across the region, but we're always seeking other qualified and interested people to join and contribute to those conversations. So we're really excited about the possibility of those work groups, the potential for the kinds of products that will come out from those efforts. So we're just getting them started, so it's a really good time to get it on the action while it's in its beginning stages. And then I'll also say that for marine debris, I've gone ahead and put the preventballoonlitter.org into the chat box there. So if you wanted to check out that website, it is really beautiful and gives some wonderful examples of ways that you can celebrate or honor or remember people without using balloon releases to do that. So we encourage everybody to visit there and share it if you can. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And I see that Judy Tucker did post the link to the portal website as well for those who don't have that link already. So that information is available to you. And again, I'll just conclude by saying, again, if you're like me, you sometimes think about the question or comment you wanted to offer after the conversation's over. So again, we're always open to receiving additional input from you. So please let us know. And I see that Judy's also offered very specific contact for Avalon, who does a wonderful job supporting not only this webinar, but many of the work group activities as well. So, so thank you, and thank you all the work group leads for the work that you do, and work group participants. So with that, we'll move on to the next section, which is really about brainstorming other collaborative activities. So not only do we enhance that. So let's see, is the results of the poll here, your top 3 choices. And the top 3 choices, I need to do quick math, look like ocean habitats, special area and artificial reefs. Next up is climate-driven ocean changes at 52%. And the next is research on important recreational and commercial fisheries. And close behind that was improved ocean health indicators, or not that close behind that, and ocean wildlife. So today, again, we appreciate your input today on those issues. That they line reasonably well with the last group. They actually had identified ocean habitats as their top vote getter, as well as climate-driven ocean changes as their second one. There is a little difference in this group and the last group. They had identified ocean health and indicators as the next one, and that was the one we only have time to discuss 3 of these issues today. Again, we're not limiting further discussion of those. We're just trying to take advantage of the time we have today to get some impact. So we have decided, actually, just for continuity's sake, to get input specifically on the same issues that we got input on in the last webinar. So today we kind of like your ideas for what collaborative actions MACO can take to address these issues. So you've told us these are issues that are important. You think further collaborative action is necessary. So we need your ideas for how and what we can be doing to address those issues. So again, with each of these issues in turn, we're looking for input from you, for any of the participants on the call. And there are other folks on the call who are available to answer questions. So again, if there are questions in addition to the work group leads, if anybody from the MACO steering committee is available, we'll try to answer any questions, or at least let you know what the current thinking is about those issues. But we're really forming a plan, and these are ideas for us to consider, for MACO to consider moving forward. So I will pause there and open it up to everyone to submit their comments and suggestions, and also open it up to the MACO steering committee or principals if they want to say anything else as we're waiting for additional comments to come in.
Yeah, Tony, I mean, it is interesting to see another topic that for the research on the fisheries issues, and I know obviously we're doing it for continuity with the other forum that we had. But that's not to say that this isn't a topic that probably has come up, and I think I mentioned a little bit, that idea that there are a lot of other groups that are in that space already. So we're definitely making sure that anything that we do in those areas is really about coordinating with those existing groups or groups that are starting up, understanding where there's value add from our coordination collaboration. So we do recognize the fisheries is really important to a lot of our states, and especially in the context of these broader conversations about other things that are happening in the ocean space. So I think it's great that there's still a lot of interest there, and I just want to make sure that folks realize that we do recognize that as a large issue, and it's a matter of making sure we're coordinating in the correct way without duplicating effort with a lot of other efforts. So.
Yeah, I wonder, Kevin, or you or somebody else on the steering committee wants to elucidate a little bit on the ongoing activity we're doing collaboratively with Rhoda on fisheries outreach and enhancing the portal data. So that's an effort we're currently working on. So I don't know if you want to just talk a little bit to that effort, or somebody else on the steering committee.
I know Jessica couldn't make it on to this part today from the MidAtlantic Fisheries Management Council, but yeah, so as part of some funding that we have for the Regional Ocean Partnership, we've working collaboratively with the Northeast Ocean Partnership as well, in terms of having public web meetings with fisheries and updating data that's on our data portal. So I think that's a really important thing. So it's direct engagement with our fisheries. One of a major use that's been a part of our data portal since early on was actually making sure that we're developing useful information and data with folks. A lot of effort went into highlighting fisheries data in some novel ways that that are highly scientific, and it helps everyone that doesn't usually have access to that kind of data, and allows them to have access really easily to high quality data that's around fisheries. So what's happening now is they're updating some of the different years of the data that we currently have on the portal, and doing that, they're also working directly with fishermen to validate that data to make sure it's as accurate as possible, and they understand what data we have out there. And I think the response has been really positive so far. Folks are really engaged in that process, and I think it's really helpful because it helps inform so many other things. Understanding a major user of the ocean space, and also how that's a huge economic driver for a lot of places too. So
great, thank you.
So Tony, this is Laura McKay. Just to kind of round out the discussion on ocean habitats, just wanted to let folks know that Virginia CZM program is funding a grant on behalf of MARCO and the whole region to look at updating some of the marine mammal seabird data and benthic data, and then use all of that information to develop an offshore wind sighting tool that will allow you to put a polygon on a particular area you may be interested in and have the portal pull up all of the relevant data layers, all of the ocean habitat data that are within that polygon. So we're hoping that will be a good way to ensure that when we consider new uses out in the ocean, that it's relatively easy to access all of the thousands, literally thousands of data layers that we have in the portal about ocean habitats and ocean wildlife.
Great, thank you. And again, folks, please, if you do have comments, we'd love to take them in. I would say sort of overlapping with that and climate-driven ocean changes, these issues are often interconnected. I will point out that we did, MACO did host a webinar on fish habitat is changing in the Mid-Atlantic, and that all the presentations from them, and there are quite high-level presentations about the work that's being done currently to consider how we can forecast and consider what the impacts on habitat might be driven by climate. So that information is available, and we did have a webinar about that a few weeks back. So again, if those folks, if you were unable to join us for that, we have posted, I believe, the link to that information is available. So again, these are issues, even if we don't have ongoing work groups addressing them, are definitely on the screen of the MACO steering committee, and we're considering what else we might want to do around that specifically on those issues. Any other input from the steering committee or work group leads? Well, we have a very, hopefully a content group as to the efforts that we're doing on here. So again, I'm just trying to, I want to make sure you have enough time. We do have some more time on this webinar if you'd like to discuss these issues or provide any more comments. Okay, Kevin, I think as chair, and unless you think we should continue this, it looks like we've given people an opportunity to submit comments. And again, that door is always open, so that opportunity is always there. And we'll take what we've gotten and your comments to date under consideration. So unless you have any other comments, I think maybe we should move on to wrap up and next steps.
Yeah, I think that'd be great, Tony. Again, like Tony said, if you do have other things, please just contact us, and we can always continue those conversations.
So again, thank you very much for your participation. Your comments will be added, as I mentioned, to the comments we received in the last webinar, and we will be doing a written summary of this, as well as providing both a tape and the presentations from this conference available for everybody after this. We will make sure that folks are aware of upcoming work group meetings and other activities to get involved. We heard several comments about being aware of particularly regulatory proposals and try to be sure that we are engaging and providing information to groups in advance of that. We heard several suggestions regarding make sure we're aware of other groups beyond ocean and coastal management groups, including the state historic preservation officers and other groups that might be interested in some of our work group activities. We heard a lot of interest in continuing efforts around marine debris, and also lots of opportunities to get involved on the ocean acidification work groups for those folks who are interested. So again, I feel like, again, I appreciate us being able to have this opportunity to engage you again. We apologize on the technical problems in the first one, but again, we are available to continue dialogue and look forward to additional meetings that will be upcoming. So if you go to the next slide, I think there are opportunities to get involved. The ones that are specifically scheduled now is June 29th at 1 p.m. Marco will be hosting a webinar on Underwater America, some work that they supported around Mid-Atlantic corals and canyons with Dr. Timothy Shank from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. Really some fascinating work that he's done around the Underwater America and the corals and canyons in the Mid-Atlantic. So hopefully you'll be able to participate in that. As Kevin indicated, Marco is also working both with NROC in New England and also ROTA to do outreach around the fisheries industry to improve Mid-Atlantic ocean data portals. And so there'll be some events there that we'll announce moving forward. So look for that. Please stay in touch. Subscribe to the calendar at midatlanticocean.org for future event listings, so you can get an alert if you don't get the direct invitation, so that you can keep abreast of all the activities that are ongoing. Please follow Marco on Twitter and Facebook, and anytime contact Mako at midatlanticocean.org. So again, they'll look for a lot of other activities. As we said, we're going to take these suggestions under advisement, and the work groups will be meeting, and the Mako Steering Committee will be meeting next month to discuss what next steps to take. So with that, again, we do have a little bit of got a couple of minutes up top. We have was this webinar effective for sharing information and gathering input? And we do have a little chat box for any additional further comments or questions that you'd like to share with us before we conclude today. So Kevin or anybody on the steering committee or leads like to offer any final remarks before we conclude today?
This is Laura. I just want to thank everyone.
Go ahead, Laura.
I was just going to say thanks to everyone, and we hope that you will continue to give us some great ideas of additional next steps we can take to make sure our Mid-Atlantic Ocean stays healthy. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Laura. Yeah, I'd echo that sentiment. You know, it's really important that we engage with all of you. You know, I think these are really helpful, and thank you for taking the time to come and talk with us and interact with us, and we look forward to doing some more in the future too.
So we'll leave this screen up for a few more minutes for a while, so that anybody does want to submit some comments, or also hopefully complete the poll in terms of whether you think this was effective in gathering information and sharing information. So we'll leave this up for 5 or 10 minutes in case anybody wants to submit any additional comments before we close the record. Great. Thank you all very much, and thank you for the Marco and Mako staff, particularly in organizing this, and for the support we also got from NOAA in hosting this workshop. So thank you very much, Tasha Allen, for your support as well in hosting this webinar. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone.